One of the most unpopular pieces of advice I give to new beauty founders is this: say no to Sephora, say no to Ulta, say no to Target. Okay, maybe not no, but definitely not yet. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see new beauty brands make is rushing into national retail before they're ready. Let's get into it. I consume a ton of emerging brand content, podcasts, industry publications, founder interviews, conference panels, and so on. And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of founder stories are told like fairy tales. An unlikely founder has a big idea. She starts building the brand on nights and weekends. The brand officially launches, and the founder ultimately decides to take a leap of faith. She quits her job and goes all in. Eventually, she lands a major retail account like Sephora or Walmart or Ulta. And then all is well with the world and everyone lives happily ever after. Roll credits. The thing that fascinates me is that the story usually ends there. And I've noticed that retail is often presented as the happy ending, the breakthrough, the big win, the moment the founder has made it. But that's not how I see it. The problem isn't retail itself. Retail distribution can be a huge opportunity, and it's often an important part of a smart, long-term growth strategy. In fact, many of the D2C brands that I work with ultimately want to pursue retail expansion. But growth creates new requirements, and different stages of the business require different capabilities. And for many new beauty brands, national retail arrives before the business really knows itself. I've spent more than 20 years marketing consumer products. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that getting into national retail and succeeding in national retail are two very different things. In this video, I'm going to explain why I generally advise beauty founders to wait before pursuing national retail, what founders often underestimate about the opportunity, and why spending the first 1 to 2 years learning your business can put you in a much stronger position when the time finally comes. So let me start by saying that I understand why founders pursue national retail distribution. Honestly, who wouldn't? For many beauty founders, getting onto the shelves of Sephora or Target or Ulta feels like proof that the brand is working, because in many cases, it is a meaningful accelerator of growth. It's also about validation for what the brand is building. Plus, retail distribution creates opportunities beyond sales. For instance, it can create credibility with future partners. And for founders seeking capital, national retail is often viewed as a signal that the business is gaining traction. Retail distribution is also one of the most visible indicators of success in beauty. When a brand announces a major retail launch, it gets noticed. Industry media notices it. Consumers notice, and other retailers notice. So I completely understand why founders become excited about landing national retail. But today, there's also a growing sense of urgency around retail distribution. More founders are pursuing it earlier. And part of the reason this conversation matters right now is because the environment has changed. Building a beauty brand today looks very different than what it did 10 years ago. The market is saturated and consumers have more choices than ever before. Customer acquisition costs have increased, and digital advertising has become much more competitive. As a result, brands have started looking toward national retail distribution earlier in the journey. Wanting retail is not the issue. The issue is timing. Pursuing national retail before you truly understand your business is where problems start to emerge. And this is where the conversation gets interesting. I'll be blunt. I don't believe that most new beauty founders know enough about their business to succeed at a national retailer. Please do not get offended and start sending me hate mail. Now, I recognize that you've put a tremendous amount of time, energy, and money into getting your brand to where it is today. But when you sell through a national retailer, and this is a surprise to many new founders, but you are responsible for your brand sell through, not the retailer. And that's a very different dynamic. To succeed, you need to understand what is actually making the business work. What products are driving the business? What messages are resonating? What marketing tactics are working? What drives repeat? And so on. Understanding the answers to those questions is absolutely critical. And in my experience, most new founders are still learning key lessons during the first 2 years of operation. And that's okay because you're learning about your customer, you're learning about your product, you're learning about your positioning, you're learning about what drives demand and what doesn't. Now, one of the reasons this matters is because, yes, retail gives more consumers access to your brand. Retail may introduce some consumers to your brand, and retail may create opportunities for discovery. But none of these eliminates the need for the brand to build awareness and drive traffic to the shelf. Think about it this way. One study found that 58% of beauty shoppers arrive in store with a short list of brands or products they're evaluating for purchase. That means that most consumers are making decisions before they ever walk into the store. And that's why I encourage founders to spend time understanding what is driving demand before expanding distribution. Because if your brand doesn't meet the retailer's productivity expectations, you may lose distribution. And with major retailers, you really only get one opportunity to make a great first impression. And making that impression requires an investment. Which brings me to my second point. Retail is expensive. Are you really sure that this is the stage where you want to invest so early in your brand's journey? A lot of founders become so focused on landing a major retail account that they don't always consider everything required to support it. There's the cost of inventory, displays and fixtures, textures and sampling, education and training, retail marketing and trade support, promotional activity, and the cash required to fund all of it before you receive payment from the retailer. In fact, I came across a chart from XRC Ventures and Beauty Independent that does a good job of illustrating how quickly costs can add up when you're supporting a retail launch. Now, these numbers will vary depending on retailer, category, and size of the launch. But to give you a sense of scale, this estimate suggests that launching a test in roughly 100 to 200 Sephora doors could require an investment of $625,000. Wow. And remember, we're not talking about a full national rollout. This chart is just capturing estimates for an initial retail test. Long story short, the investments in retail expansion add up quickly. And even after the product ships, payment may not arrive for weeks or months, depending on the retailer's terms. In other words, cash starts leaving the business long before cash comes back into it. And that's what makes this so challenging for newer beauty brands. During those first 2 years, you're still building financial stability. You're reinvesting profits. You're managing cash flow. You're learning what marketing investments generate a return and which ones don't. And suddenly, you're contemplating an investment that is significantly larger than anything you've made before. National retail is not simply a distribution decision. It is a capital allocation decision. Capital is only part of the challenge because once you're in a national retailer, your business model changes. You are no longer focused exclusively on growing your direct-to-consumer business. Plus, a significant portion of your time and resources shifts towards supporting that new retail relationship, forecasting demand, planning inventory, preparing for promotions, and managing retailer expectations. These may sound like operational details, but they can have a significant impact on your success at retail. And that's where many newer brands begin to struggle. Let's start with inventory. If demand exceeds the forecast, stockouts become a problem. If demand falls short of the forecast, you're sitting on inventory that ties up cash and creates risk. Neither situation is ideal, and both require a level of forecasting discipline that many newer brands are still developing. Then there's the pressure to perform. A retailer may like your brand and what it stands for, but they are also looking for your brand to help grow their business. So they will be evaluating your performance. They look at sales, they look at velocity, they look at whether your brand is earning its space on shelf. And this is important because today retail is highly competitive. There's always another brand looking for shelf space. Sometimes it's a brand already on shelf looking to expand. Sometimes it's a new brand trying to get in, which means that shelf space has to be earned and defend it. And when brands aren't prepared for these realities, the consequences can be significant. And in some cases, they're part of the reason we see indie brands losing shelf space, exiting key retailers, or shutting down altogether. So this is why I encourage founders to be thoughtful about timing, because once you enter retail, the business becomes less forgiving. Mistakes become more expensive. Operational issues become more visible. Yes, retail can accelerate growth, but only if the business is ready to support it. So am I telling beauty founders to say no to Sephora, Target, Ulta, and Walmart? Not necessarily, but I am suggesting that many new brands pursue national retail too early. Retail can be transformative for a brand. It can create awareness. It can create credibility. It can create scale. National retail is not the enemy. It is a growth channel and an important one, but it also requires a level of understanding, investment, and operational discipline that many brands are still developing. That's why my advice is often the same. Not no forever, just not yet, because national retail will still be there. And when the timing is right, you'll be in a much stronger position to succeed. So what should a new beauty brand be focused on during those first 2 years before pursuing a national retail? I'll cover that in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching. And if you're a founder building a consumer products business, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.